So hello, my name is TVA or LTVA, and so we're looking at new version of klystrack-plus, my own fork of awesome chiptune tracker, klystrack. So let's begin. You can already see that we have more speed range. So before you could specify only speed from 0 to F, but now you can 0 to FF, and I remind you that in most cases you press shift and you go with the 16 step, so it's hexadecimal. So with 16 step, and if you press Ctrl, you go with 256 step. Yes. So of course, if you press them both, you go by for 4096 step. Also, you can see that we have rate. Crazy rates are now possible because I've seen a lot of songs with rates like 400 Hz, and of course you can use these crazy rates. Rate goes all the way up to this standard value, because this value is standard rate at which klystrack operates, and it may crash on your PC if you go beyond, so I kept it at this value. But of course this value is 2 byte, so you have now new commands. Let's start with these two. Set speed 1, set speed 2, because you now have extended speed range, and you of course need some commands to set it, because traditional set speed command only allows you to go from 0 to F for each speed set. And of course you can now set rate. This was usual set rate, but now it's set rate lower byte, and of course you have set rate higher byte now. And it wouldn't be set if resulting value will be higher than this one. So I even made one song to demonstrate this. Let me show it. Yes, this is it. Just goes this way. So it just sets. Oh, this is new command. Pulse width fine. Set fine pulse width in range from 000 to FFF. And you can just set volume, and so this should produce a sawtooth wave, but of course it wouldn't be in tune. But a great example what you can do with crazy rate. So I'm gonna show you new thing also. It's oscilloscope. It's currently showing only in instrument editor. It may be too big for small screens, so you currently don't have any way to set its size, but anyway it is here. It also has, you can see this kind of cool look when you see only every second pixel line. So what it produces is, so this is just a 16 step sawtooth, and of course you can go up to this frequency. So the new thing also is that you can now have more octaves, so up to 9th octave. So let me show. Before, so this is, we have our instrument. You can see that it is already at a very high note. So before you just had this default instrument, and let's make it. And of course you can see that oscilloscope holds wave, but it's simple zero cross trigger. So if you have some complex wave like FM wave, it will not hold it properly. And its trigger point is just above 0, a small amount above 0. So if your wave dances somewhere here, let me show you, it will just not trigger properly, and your wave will be just, I don't know, it will be just displayed as is without any triggering, and so it will go like this. Before, the largest note you could set was B7. So we can see that in the code it's almost 4 kHz. But many chips can go higher. Of course, if I remember correctly, Commodore Seed chip cannot even produce B7, so it's kept around these two notes. But many other chips like AAY chip from ZX Spectrum and other computers, it can produce very crazy frequencies. So I stopped at B9. I don't know if you can hear this. It is very high-pitched hiss. It's around, as you can see, almost 16 kHz, and even I barely hear it. So if you are somewhat older or you have bad headphones, you wouldn't even hear it. The next thing, okay, let's talk about commands. So you could already see that there are some new things. here. And so let me create a pattern, small pattern. And so, for example, you go with like set cutoff, and you also need to set pulse width, maybe even fine pulse width. So you can already see that it says now not command but command 1 in the left bottom corner. So you actually can go up to 8 columns, 8 commands. So of course it's stolen from Furnace Tracker, but you can go wide, and of course all these commands will be executed at the same time. So you can move your command here, and also have some, I don't know, vibrator and other commands here. So this setting, how many columns you should tracker should show, it goes for every pattern. So for example, if I have pattern number 5 and here I expand one column like this, so if we move down, it's showing 2 columns, but now it's showing only 1. Of course it's a bit of inconvenient, so you may say that better use this setting for every channel rather than every pattern, but I decided to do this way. Of course I can I still can, if you want, make it so it will be saved for every channel rather than every pattern. So your usual patterns go like this, and so for example you place here some other pattern, and you can switch between them like this. So everything works as it worked as usual. So also I forgot to mention that here you can see that before there were 3 numbers and now there are 4, because actually song length parameter is 16-bit. So it seemed to me kind of confusing when you have like very long song and you go like to the point of FFF here, and you start with 000 again, and it's like, I don't know, I didn't like it, so I changed it so it displays full value. So next thing, you see there for in control bits column you now have 4 small columns. It's because the last one controls tremolo, and of course in instrument editor you can set this tremolo. It works entirely like vibrator, so if you set it, it works from the beginning. If you don't set it, it doesn't work until you have like this sequence. So when you're playing this sequence, tremolo works, and after it stops working. So let me show, for example, make some tremolo, I don't know, obvious one, and of course let's switch to more pleasant frequency. So as you see, it works like tremolo, and now it doesn't work. But if I set these tremolo bits, so it gave a short burst of tremolo until this column ended, and after that it disabled tremolo. So let's enable it for default and see what happens when we trigger tremolo command, because now it works somewhat different. So here we have our tremolo command. Of course this is speed, this is depth, where depth is half the range, if I remember correctly. So what it actually does, it's when you trigger it, it sets its own parameters. But when you trigger 00 command, so 2400, listen what happens. So when you trigger this command, it switches back to instrument parameters. So the same goes with vibrator command now, but not with pulse width modification command. So if you are using PWM command, which is 25, let's say 253F, and we set some pulse and disable this ugly tremolos, it was only for demonstration, you can see that and of course we need to end it. So here it works differently, and it actually sets to 0 speed and depth when tracker encounters this command. So when you set the PWM command, and it enables PWM even if you have nothing here set for PWM. And when you set next command, which is 002500, it actually does not return to instrument parameters. Instead, it just stops the PWM. It's made so because you actually don't have any control bit for PWM, and so with this command you can disable it. Instead of adding fifth column, I decided to do this command. So listen. Oh, of course, we need to set higher parameters. And so we set to its original value. So the next we need to talk about is key scaling. So what it does, let me show you. Key scaling is a feature that enables you to make more natural sounding instruments. So let's switch back to triangle because it sounds better. It enables you to mimic original musical instruments, real instruments. So here you see the triangle volume is here, but you see when I trigger higher note, it's of lower volume, but it should perceived volume should stay the same if you have good headphones, because it's just how sound works, physics and stuff. So as you see, it works like this. But if you trigger some note from, let's say, third octave, and then trigger our bass note, for example this one, so you saw that if note is lower than bass note, its volume is actually higher. So you can do this trick maybe for instead of using it for making natural sounding music instruments, you can use it for example, setting volume that is even higher than FF volume here. Envelope key scaling, here we need to remove this. So it does the opposite thing, but with attack, decay and release phases of the envelope. So if your note is higher, its envelope will be shorter. It's made mostly for OPL3 chip compatibility, and because I love how piano sounds. And on piano, if your note is higher, usually you have a shorter sound. So here how it works. Of course, it works other way. So if your note is lower, envelope will be longer. So these are the same, but for FM modulator. So no need to talk about them separately. This level, you can set it by special commands. You have these four commands: volume, FM modulator volume, envelope, and FM modulator envelope key scaling levels. So you can set them. The next thing may be interpolation command, I think, because it now works differently, and because you now have more command columns, you need to understand how it actually works. So how it worked before, for example, we have some command, let's say this one, and here we had this command, and we just selected it, pressed Ctrl+I, and it just did this. So for every intermediate this command value, it interpolated linearly its parameter, and for example, if there are some other comments, it didn't touch it. But now what you do, let's leave these comments. Now you need to stay at the column where you want this command to be interpolated, so your cursor should stay at this point, and when you press Ctrl+I, it just fills in additional comments, so you don't need to enter like this empty things by yourself. You just can say it to interpolate, and as you can see, our 04 and 0C commands stayed untouched. So that's how it now works. Also, what is added is the ability to hide oscilloscope, of course, and this setting is saved in config. So you may hide it if you don't want it. It's enabled by default. When you download my new release, it's enabled, but you can of course disable it if you don't like it or anything. So also, very important thing, because there is this button here, and regardless of what your progress was. So, for example, if you have worked on your song for 4 hours or even more, and you accidentally, for example, you wanted to enable some analyzer and you misclicked and and klystrack just closed and all the progress was lost. Now you have this special feature. Do you really want to exit? This also shows if you want to press on cross here. It also shows. No, I don't want to exit, of course. The next thing is let's talk a bit about optimization first. So as you can see now in a fixed bus, we have only 16 tabs from 0 to 15 enabled, and we have this new thing. This is the total amount of tabs, so you can go up to 64 with them, of course, here. And now only tabs that are actually used, so which are set here, will be saved. So for example, if you enable this tab, it automatically sets this counter, but if for some reason this counter wasn't set, so this tab wouldn't be the last one, these tabs wouldn't be saved. So it's some optimization, because before in klystrack-plus it saved all 64 tabs, and your file will be quite big. And of course, if you don't want stereo or reverb things, these parameters wouldn't be saved, deezer wouldn't be saved, this volume and crash beats wouldn't be saved if you don't enable them. Also, the next thing is the sequence editor. It also has optimization. So when you enter the pattern like this, no matter what pattern, you actually, before you added 5 bytes to song size, but now it's optimized, so 4 bytes, not 5. And the next thing will be, I think, the last one. It's new optimizing things. This command, optimize patterns brute. So let me show what it does. I have an example song, which is located here. So as you can see, in some example songs in previous version, I've seen this thing when it's like just one big row of repeating instrument number. So klystrack has this quirk. So when you let me mute this channel, solo this channel. So when you, for example, have this sequence, as you can hear, it actually triggers instrument without even instrument number specified. Of course, it assumes that it's still instrument 01. So based on this, I made several optimizations, and I don't recommend using. I now tell you, I don't recommend using it if you have v0.8 commands in instrument macro, because it breaks these commands, and so just instrument becomes silent or it will messes up. So let's say optimize patterns brute. Of course, you cannot undo this, so before you must save your work. I recommend strongly. So kill all instruments on empty rows. So all these 3 will be killed, all these 3, and again and again. So let's see what happened. We just killed these unnecessary instruments. So let me load the song again. This was the first part of optimization. Now we want to go further. If we don't have, for example, v0.8 commands in our instruments, we can just do first step and second step. And so we cleaned all these. But let me show you. If instrument changes, so for example, we here have instrument 1, it wouldn't delete it. So let's go like this, and you can see that this 01 instrument is left here as it should be. So the last one part of this optimization algorithm is, as you can see, I have placed some last elements here. So actually pattern, you can press Alt plus insert and Alt plus delete to insert one step or delete one step, and it adds several bytes to your song size. And if you are like competing for every byte of your song weight, you can use the last thing. So let's do all them. Yes, 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 and the last one, shrink patterns. No, it's not like shrink, it's like cut them at last not empty row. So of course it works now if you have some comments somewhere here. So I think that's all main features. Also there is one experimental feature which I recommend you to use if only you experience some aliasing issues. For example, if you have very high note and you like export a WAV file and you have like very common frequencies which are not meant to be there, so you can now export high-res WAV. This works as usual WAV export, but it just requires 9 times more time. So because sample rate will be raised from this value, standard one, to 384,000 Hertz. So your benign triangle wave will be triangle wave and not some mess which I observed in Audacity while observing what file it produced. So I think that's all.